Hey, I'm Danny Surname, and I finally saw 1984 on stage. I love 1984 the book because it's very close to my favourite book, Brave New World, which if you watch my channel normally, you'll know I talk about more than is really necessary. But anyway, I finally saw the production. It was great, it was amazing, it was done by Headlong, which is one of my favourite theatre companies, and instead of giving a review, I'm gonna do another analysis like my last video. Because why do an ordinary review when you can talk about how awesome and influential theatre is? So the theme for this video is talking about adaptations and understanding how one art form is different from another when you're adapting something. There is many a time when a book has been taken and made into a stage production or a movie and it's completely failed because the person who wrote the play or the movie didn't understand how those art forms are different from each other. But that is most certainly not what happened with 1984, which is why I want to talk about it, because such a great example of an amazing adaptation. So 1984 was originally a book that was made into a play, and the great thing about it is that Headlong understood exactly how the story had to be different on stage for it still to be a true representation of the book. And by true representation, I mean to carry the same feelings, to give off the same concepts, and to still leave you with that utter impending sense of doom and paranoia that you get when you finish the book. And the way that they did that was through completely and utterly ripping apart the chronology of the original narrative. 1984 has a very set way that it happens. You start with Winston and you follow his journey into rebellion. But with the stage production, you don't really feel that you're following Winston's journey because the way that the chronology is, or has been, shifted around. But with the play, it's like the original book has been sliced up, with some bits being reproduced, some bits being thrown away, and other bits just completely swapped around. From beginning to end, the play happens in a completely different order than the book, and it works so well that I am just in awe of this production. You begin the play at the end of the book, and throughout the play, there are several scenes that are repeated, which is definitely not what happens in the book. But because those scenes are repeated, which I will say is my favourite thing about the whole of the production, these repeated scenes, because each time they were repeated, a tiny thing was changed, and so you were left with this sense of never being able to trust your own memory. You were never able to trust what Winston could remember, which is one of the biggest concepts in the book, the power of memory, or the power to be able to shift memory, or erase memory, or pretend that something never happened. The way that the play shifted between scenes and repeated them meant that you could only understand what you were being allowed to understand, almost exactly in the same way that the people in the book are only ever allowed to understand what Big Brother lets them understand. You had to trust that what you were seeing on stage was actually happening in the story, and that it wasn't just somebody remembering that in the wrong way, or somebody manipulating what you were able to see. Which isn't what happens in the book. You understand that those things, that manipulation, that erasure, that never knowing if you're in control of what you can remember or not, happens to other people in the book. But you don't think that that's happening to you as you're reading along with what Winston's experiencing. But when you reach the end of the book, you leave with those feelings of not knowing whether that's happening in the real world, which is why 1984 is often used as a metaphor for totalitarian states in real life. So while those feelings of paranoia and not knowing whether you can trust the world outside were created in very different ways, they both work to create that same sense. So all in all, this production was an amazing example of understanding how an adaptation has to be different from the original art form that you're taking it from. You can't just put a book on stage and expect it to stand. But if you take that book, if you dissect down what that book means to people, what the concepts and the feelings that other people get when they read that book, and you try and recreate those in a completely different way, then you're going to have a great production. And 1984 was a great production. I am willing to bet money that 1984 will come back, so if you can get tickets for it, then do, because yay, it was awesome. The rest of the production, outside of this analysis, was also amazing. So see it on the basis of that and not just this interesting adaptation analogy that I've created here. But let me know in the comments if there are any great adaptations or bad adaptations that this video made you think of. Give me an ego boost, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.